Why are there so many bad tattoo artists out there? Just trying to get a simple tattoo nowadays is like walking through a minefield. And I can tell you guys from my experience over the years that I've seen many studio owners that would use apprenticeships as a way to make easy money. And they would just kind of hire any kid off the street, whoever's able to pay a couple $1,000 for an apprenticeship. And honestly, a few months later, they just tell them, congrats, you're a tattoo artist. And they send them out into the world to tattoo the masses. And unfortunately, most of them never really experience the real kind of training that they need or get the proper experience that they need before they can open their own studio and start taking apprentices of their own. But unfortunately, they still do open their own studios and still do take on more apprentices. And the cycle goes on and on and on. And so one of our viewers recently cued us onto a studio and an artist that fits that mold. So stick around. I'm going to break it down. Hello, welcome to the show. This is Hack Hunter, where we review some of the best and worst tattoo artists in your cities. And this week we head out to Neosho, Missouri, where there was a studio one of our viewers pointed out that had way too many apprentices and only one artist to teach them all. So let me introduce Brian Hance. You can find him working at The Missing Ink right there in Neosho. The Missing Ink, that's a clever little name. If you want to find his Instagram, Brian Hance Tattoos. If you're interested, always do your own research, guys. But let me show you what I found. Boom, gotta start with this one because yikes, oh my goodness, look at the numbers on this clock. 1, 2, 3, a jacked up 4, and then this would be a V. I'm not sure, I think there's maybe like cracks in the glass, that's what it's supposed to be, but it's just sort of weird that here's 6. 5 is way over here, 6 is way over here, and then this is supposed to be 7, but it looks like an 8. And then that's definitely 9, 10, and then what? That's supposed to be XI, but it's like an upside down IV. Maybe the client asked for that, I don't know, but I'm guessing not, because the whole thing looks really kind of half-ass, squiggly, scraggly shading. And down here, I'm not a fan of how the banner just kind of stops. It doesn't connect right there. That's very strange looking. Some of these have a straight point, some have bent points, some have no points. All in all, just kind of haphazard kind of tattoo, really roughly done. And that's what I saw in a lot of his work. He used the same kind of heavy line weight throughout the whole thing, usually just kind of a medium bold line weight. And when it came to doing like small details, like up here in this Valkyrie's helmet here, or this earpiece, whatever this is, yeah, these little feathers here, they would do a lot nicer with some thinner line weight detail in there, but he just kind of did some squiggly big feathers with a bold line and then just kind of scratched it in there, and it's really hard to see small detail. And another thing I saw throughout his whole portfolio was heavy dark black shading with no real light shading. You can see how little light shading there was done in the face there. And so everything, I'm a big fan of dark contrast in tattoos. That's the kind of work that I like to do personally, but I don't like it when you can tell that an artist does not know how to do the medium and the light grays, and that's something that I saw a lot throughout his portfolio. Now, when I talk about cover-ups, let's talk about this one. Somebody wanted to cover up this sweet tattoo. Not sure why. It's awesome, but let's see how it turned out. Boom, big American traditional piece here, really heavily saturated. I think this goes to show again just some design flaws that maybe he could have learned in a better apprenticeship, but this heavy purple here, it's just way too heavy saturated. And then same with the rose and the leaves. There, you might want to put a skin break in there to differentiate all these colors so it doesn't look so heavily saturated. He did a little bit here in the rose, but I'm not sure if that's intentional or just sloppy fill-in. So you can see like the black lines here, they just get kind of muddied up by how heavy that purple is. But the main problem I've seen in this is how dark he did the neck. Look at that. Obviously a cover-up. If we take a closer look here, we can see, yeah, there's something in there that he was covering up, and obviously didn't want to do any light shading in the face, so he just did heavy dark shading here. Again, that's something I saw throughout his whole book, was just all this dark shading with little light shading. And light soft shading takes a little bit more time. It's a little more difficult, and some artists never really perfect it, and I think that's what's going on here. He never really perfected it, so he just avoids it. But another thing, I gotta point out this, if you zoom in on artist's work, and you can see these thin little lines in their bold lines. Here it is on the chin here too, you can see that. It's not one solid bold line, it's a bunch of thin little lines. The reason this happens, and I'm gonna explain this in depth here, the reason it happens is because in tattooing there's liners, there's round shaders, and then there's mags. Now a lot of times for these bold lines, we'll use round shaders like this, and it's a group of multiple needles that are kind of bold like this. Now, if an artist is at a 90-degree angle, then all of those needles are puncturing evenly to the same depth, right? And that's the way you want to do it. It's a little more difficult to do that, and it's an awkward way to tattoo, but that's the correct way to tattoo. So here's the incorrect way. If you're at a sharp angle and artist is at too sharp of an angle, this is what's happening. Some of those needles are puncturing, some of them are getting to the proper depth, other ones aren't puncturing at all. Other ones are maybe just tapping the surface. And so you get these really inconsistent lines. What you want is an artist that has mastered the technique of keeping it at that 90-degree parallel angle so that all the needles are puncturing evenly. And when you don't, that's what you get, are these scraggly little lines here that they're not looking the way they're supposed to be looking. And so you guys hear me talk about application technique all the time, and that's what matters. It's not how well you can draw a line when you tattoo, it's how well it heals in the end. Now, here's another example of some of his work where he actually did fine line stuff, and you can see the barrel of this gun is very, very wonky. Not only the line work, but the shading. So you can tell that these thin line weights are something that he really struggles with, and the small detail as well. He just kind of put some kind of grit in there, a little bit of choppy shading, and called it good, but it's definitely lacking a cleanness or a crispness that it should have. Now, like I said, when I went on their website and I click on our tattooers page, he's the only artist that's listed at the top, and the rest of them just apprentices. Here's an apprentice, here's another apprentice, and then another one. And you know, sometimes they don't update their website. Maybe there's other tattooers there. I couldn't find them in my searching. Another thing that I came across though that I really did not like was this pricing guide they created. They first off, you choose what kind of detail you want, what kind of tattoo you want, and then how big you want it. And that is somehow supposed to be a clear way for clients to figure out what they're gonna pay for their next tattoo. And that is just insane. I'm not a big fan of that at all. Now, they did list blacklight tattoos in there, and so you guys have actually asked me quite a few times how I feel about this, and I've never really addressed it on the show. Here's an example of a blacklight tattoo that he did recently, and they took a little video to show you what it looks like in the actual black light. And I have minimal experience with this, okay? Back when it first kind of hit the scene, everybody was trying it. Every artist was kind of charging more for these. But the truth is, a lot of clients had complaints because when these heal, you have to hold that light right up to your tattoo to get it to glow well. Now, right off the bat like this, they glow really nice when they're brand new and fresh, but after they heal, they don't always. And that could have been, you know, something that just was the case back in the day, and I just don't have new experience with it. So I'd love to hear from you guys if you've had any of these blacklight tattoos that you've had great experience with. But from my experience, a lot of customers would just complain about them frequently. And yeah, they often just looked messy, and artists would have a hard time applying the ink well because, of course, you want to apply it in the black light so you can see that you're saturating it well enough. But maybe they've made some advances, and I certainly hope these guys are happy with theirs. Now, out of all of Brian's work, the most that I found that I liked was his small work, like this. Tiny little things, like little flowers and stuff. Now, there's still some, you know, wonky lines in there, and you can tell that he's definitely struggling with these lighter tones. You can see them bleeding a little bit more, but most of these, they came out really clean and nice, and he was okay at them. Now, again, with these small line weights, I was not a fan because you can see, yeah, a lot of them have errors. The leaves aren't, or the petals aren't connected in places. Some of the line weights are bolder in areas and thinner in other areas. So, yeah, I can tell he's definitely not got it mastered. But I think all in all, this is pretty obvious to me. This is not an artist that I think should be managing a studio and managing 3 apprentices at the same time. This is not an artist that I think is at a level in their career where they should be worried about apprenticing other artists. So I think it's pretty obvious from my point of view. Brian Hance goes on our hack list. Now, guys, if you are an apprentice out there or somebody looking for an apprenticeship, you have to avoid studios like this where they're just banging out a bunch of apprentices frequently, okay? You want to choose your mentor the same way you would research and choose a tattoo artist. Don't just go to the first person that can get you in. Don't go to the first tattoo artist that's willing to teach you. Find one that you love, find one that you respect, and you love their work, and ask them to teach you. But that's it for this one, guys. Stick around for part number 2 if you want to see an artist out there that we do recommend. Otherwise, we'll see you in the next city. All right, bye-bye.